assume.
Yep. This is the mono green deck that has like a little bit more of a creature focus. You're not obviously Karn got banned, so you're not gonna have the Karn wish board and the same kinds of artifact wish targets that you're normally used to. This mono green devotion shell does wind up splashing white for Elishnorn, Mother of Machines, and then has a lot of enters the battlefield effects. But with that Kiora that Frenchie is playing over there, that is going to be the kind of key theme to the deck, playing big beefy things that are going to draw you cards and continuing to kind of chain up so your Nykthos can generate a lot of advantage with its mana.
Yeah. So as you know, as I'm being the play-by-play for today, I probably don't know much of the Azorius Spirits cards just based off the art.
Oh, baby, I do.
Okay. So luckily we're gonna have Tom here to help me out tonight.
Yeah, so
with this one.
what Bao has done is wound up shocking in a Hallowed Fountain, and then at the end of Frenchie's second turn, where the Cure was played, wound up just flashing in a Spectral Sailor. That is the anime waifu version of it, which is, you know, like the good one, if you want to think about that. But it looks like Bao is going to be attempting to take down the Kiora as quickly as possible, but Frenchie, with that Nykthos online, currently has access to only 2 Devotion. However, with an untap from Kiora, that'd be 4 mana, so it's technically 1 more than what we're used to seeing from just kind of combination here. But it looks like floating 1, and oh, there's the big baddie of the mono green decks, Cavalier of Thorns, which is an absolute stonewall against this Azorius Spirits deck.
So on the stack, it looks like Bao's another response here. Gonna pay 2. Gonna have
Geistlight Snare.
Gaslight Snare.
Basically Monoleak, only because there's a Spirit in play, it's going to cost 2 instead of costing the full 3 mana, and that is a must counter target from Bao, because Cavalier of Thorns is a 5/6 reach, so that's a big butt elemental, and everything in Bao's deck, I believe, is like 2 toughness or less, and maybe 3 power maximum, so that is definitely kill on sight.
So one thing I do know about Bao's hand is that is a spell queller. From I only know that because of the old modern days. So they're gonna swing in for I think 1.
Yep, just pinging the Kiora, actually, trying to get that card draw engine offline for Frenchie. But I mean, Kiora comes into play with like 7 loyalty and ticks down to 6, so it's very hard to deal with. And this is going to be a bit of a new card from Outlaws at Thunder Junction. It looks like Bao is going to have to read it as well. This is the one that when it enters, it makes a color of mana, and then has the landfall effect. I can't think of the something Trailblazer, Outcast Trailblazer.
Outcast, yeah. I remember last time we had a very hard time trying to figure out what the hell this card is, because because I remember we played it got played last time. We did have a hard time doing it, like trying to find out, but this what we were able to find out Scryfall here.
Yeah, so this is going to just basically be Outcast Trailblazer is a 4/2 for 3, so it will trigger Kiora to draw a card, and then basically has the Kiora effect on it as well. So this is the difference in what the mono green shell is doing now, because Karn isn't there to generate like this artificial advantage that you're normally going to be getting out of a wish board. Instead, you're going to be trying to draw cards naturally, and double Outcaster Trailblazer here means that there's going to be draw 3 every single time Frenchie plays a power 4 or greater card, and that kind of card advantage is just not good for a tempo style deck like Spirits.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure every creature too as well in the mono green deck is just 4 greater.
Yeah, it's like elves, and that's about it, because you have trolls, you have Cavalier, you have other Outcaster Trailblazers, and yeah, Bao has to deal with this.
So we have another one of those manually type effects coming out from Bao. So Frenchie's gonna pass over back to Bao. So, I'm trying to think what removal of Spirits has against to get rid of this Outcast Trailblazer, because it can really get out of hand here. As we do play the older Wara, which I guess you have to make a land drop for this turn.
Yeah, there's no real hard removal in the main deck of Azorius Spirits. I believe a lot of the kind of get lost removal effects are in the sideboard. And instead of that, you're kind of going for this tempo play where you're playing cheap interactive counter spells. You're playing like that Spell Queller that Bao has in hand, Spell Piercing, Geistlight Snare, and trying to tempo out a deck. Mono green has always been a problem for Spirits because it just kind of looks at your tempo curve and just says like, yeah, screw that, I'm playing things ahead of it.
So we're going to have a 4 damage hitting it towards Bao. So Bao's going to respond for it. So after text is declared, Bao has a response.
Okay.
Gonna maybe assume probably flashing that 12 color, or what's this? Oh, another one of these special.
So another little anime waifu comes into play. Just a 1/1 flyer. Bao already has one that's been kind of picking away at the Kiora, but since he keeps attacking the Kiora, just flash that one in for a blocker, preventing some damage from coming through, keeping his life total high. It'll be important because if you can actually counterspell what Frenchie can play here, although the ley line's not really a counterspell target here, this is going to be something that will generate a lot of devotion, but more importantly, it's going to be something that doesn't necessarily do something right now. So if Bao can respond to the follow-up casted cards, he's probably okay letting this one resolve.
So Bao thinking about potentially spell coding, so he's gonna let the ley line, the guild pack resolve. So
Yeah, I kind of just like letting the ley line resolve. It does nothing by itself. So
yeah, so I did not know that ley line is played in mono green. That is a bit interesting.
So the thing is with this mono green deck, because you wound up losing the Karn package, you need to be able to generate a lot of mana in additional ways. So this ley line of the Guild Pact is 4 green devotion, which can just start off on turn 0 that way. So that's a ton of mana that you get out of the gate. And with a Nykthos and an Elf as early as turn 2, you can generate 5-6 mana with the Elf tapping as well, which then just throws out a bunch of these giant creatures.
So Bowser the swings at the Kiora and passes, leaving with the 4 mana. So still thinking about spell color, maybe potentially another counter spell here.
Yeah,
so we're gonna track. Maybe we're gonna track
all that floating mana, yeah.
into a. I know what that card is.
That's Cavalier of Thorns again.
Cavalier.
Unfortunately, that is a 5 mana spell and not a 4 mana spell.
So Spellcrawler cannot unfortunately do anything here, unless Bao would think so.
He might just kind of be bluffing. I think he had Rattle Chains and then double Shacklegeist in hand. So Rattle Chains can kind of get something hexproof and make all of your other spirits have flash.
So
but
Bao is going to play the Spellcrawler out anyway.
Oh, Bao had to read the card.
Sometimes reading the card explains the card. So
it's still a creature. It'll resolve. It was
yeah, so Spellcrawler is going to come out with not counter anything.
Yeah.
A little bit.
No.
Oh, if Nicholas offering to take it back here, but Bao's gonna play like, hey, it's like Comfort Yell. It is what it is. You have to play it out.
And this is a little bit devastating if you're Bao, because now Frenchie's going to be able to draw a bunch of cards. There's also the Cavalier trigger, which is going on the stack, so you're going to wind up getting an additional land from your graveyard if you find one. Unfortunately, it looks like Frenchie found no lands. There is an Elishnorn Mother of Machines in the graveyard and 2 copies of Storm the Festival, which people will remember.
Yeah. So turns out it is actually not mono green.
It's mommy green. It's literally just the mono green shell with Elishnorn to double all these effects, because Elishnorn says whenever a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability to trigger, it happens again. So Kiora happens twice, Outcaster Trailblazer happens twice, you're drawing 4 cards instead of 2, and you just generate so much advantage. You untap your Nykthos, and then eventually you'll play something like an Ovenwald Oddity, flip it over, give everything haste and trample, and just murder your opponent.
So looks like it was a 2 draws, right? Oh, a second one!
This is rough for
So draw 2 more cards for Frenchie. The card advantage is getting out of control here. Gonna... Looks like a Hive of the... I forgot the name.
That one's the Lair of the Hydra.
Lair of the Hive.
Yeah.
There you go. There's like 2 Elvish Mystic and another one of those Outlaws. Draw some more.
I think there's 3 mana left in Frenchie's pools with that. Oh no, there's a lot of mana left in the pool,
There's a lot more than actually we thought.
that's a flashback of Storm the Festival. So this is going to be potentially 2 things of 5 mana or less coming into play. Looks like only a couple of targets though. I think that's an Oath of Nissa and a Kiora, and I'm not sure if that's another Cavalier of Thorns or something else. It looks like it's just a land. So lands can be hit here. So you're going to want to getting land and second Kiora, Legend Roll the other Kiora, which Bao spent so much time trying to kill.
I think it's been like 3 turns of swinging at the Cure the entire time.
And Frenchie's pretty much just completely in control of this game. There's not a lot that the Azorius Spirits that can do once you kind of lose the control of the tempo of the game. So Bao's just kind of sitting here watching Frenchie go through the motions, trying to figure out what his deck is going to be doing, and seeing in game number 2 what you want to target with this counter magic that you have.
So Bao is watching everything unfold, which you can tell. So it looks like 13 mana, hearing from Frenchie, actually still floated. So does Nicholas just win the game off on the spot here, or set up, or will he just be set up for next turn?
So what you need to do is you need to find a Uvenwald Oddity, which is it's a 4 mana creature, and it winds up having this ability to flip over with transformation. When it flips over, it itself right out of the gate has trample and haste, but when it flips over, it pumps your team by 1 and then gives them all trample and haste. So all these Storm the Festivals, while also generating all this insane value from these card draws by just putting things into play with power 4 or greater, it's digging towards potentially just killing Bao outright this turn with the 4, 8, 18, now
Wow,
22
troll.
damage on the battlefield.
So, are we sure be watching Pioneer here? Because this is looking like a CDH combo at this point.
Yep, pretty much. And like we're kind of used to mono green doing these things only before it was finding artifacts, and now it just kind of like put the little bit of white splash in there instead of being like colorless green, and it pretty much does the same thing. Oh, and a second
Can
nick those.
floating. So, how much more mana is we've made here?
We flash back for 10. We had 3 floating, and this is we'll see. Yeah, Frenchie reaches for second dice. It's gonna be a lot of mana. Looks like just straight 20.
Just straight 20 minus 3 more draws. Drawing what,
3
six,
cards.
3 cards here.
Yeah.
So we're just really are just digging for the Uwenwald at this point.
Yeah, and if when you hit the transform side, that's going to be kind of like the big thing, because when it transforms, other creatures get +1/+1 trample and haste, so that's just going to be so much damage coming through it.
Of the
Oh, there it is.
Uwenwald.
So it looks like he found it.
So Val is now reading it. And going on now to game 2, Nicholas takes game number 1.
Yeah, and that was a turn. So Nicholas, Frenchie was on the play, so that is a turn 5 kill from the Mono Green Devotion deck, which like isn't too far off from like turn 4 kills that we used to see with the Karn Shell.
Oh no. Oh, shoot.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons why.
So going into this kind of sideboard game, now that Bao has a little bit more of an understanding as to what this mono green or green mini white devotion deck is going to be doing, Bao is going to be looking to bring in a lot of his white removal effects. So there are going to be cards like Get Lost that wind up coming in. I wouldn't entirely be surprised to also see Invasion of Gobakon coming in if he has them. Now, normally you think that's going to be something that gets played against the combo and control decks. You can kind of tax one of their payoffs and then kind of just have the ability to survive a board wipe. Well, in Bao's case, you got to kind of treat this mono green engine deck with all the devotion it's making kind of like a combo deck. So putting those in will be able to take like a Kiora away early game, being able to take away like a Storm the Festival so that Frenchie can't kind of use that on curve, which for the green deck is like turn 3 or 4, to be able to generate immense amounts of value. And then on the flip side, if Bao is able to continue attacking and chipping away at Frenchie's life total, that Invasion of Gobakon eventually will kind of make things indestructible and put him in a position where he could potentially just take control of the life race by just making some of his small things indestructible and forcing bad blocks out of Frenchie.
So probably gonna assume from Bao's side here, from the side where probably gonna especially get losses, some
Yeah.
damping spears.
No, Damping Sphere is another big one, yeah.
Sure. Now I'm not too sure how much Bao is, but we're probably gonna assume only just the 2, which probably is gonna be more than enough.
Yeah, I still think the Invasion of Gobakon wouldn't be a bad thing to put in here. And then if you have any other copies of Counter Magic, you kind of have to debate like, okay, obviously Frenchie played a ton of creatures that game, but do you value spell piercing a Kiora on curve? Do you value spell piercing a Storm the Festival on curve? And how quickly does that give you diminishing returns if there's double Nykthos on the battlefield?
Now I'm pretty sure we don't have a, typical white thing, which is settle the wreckage in Bao's sideboard here.
No, I don't think
Most
so.
likely not. But it'd be interesting if Bao does have it.
Yeah, that would kind of be very weird, because what the blue-white spirits or the Azorius spirits deck is trying to do, it takes advantage of something in Magic called tempo, where a lot of people confuse tempo with control, which like it's fair because they do very similar things. So the tempo style deck that Bao is playing is going to be trying to basically stay one step ahead of Frenchie, but you're not having the black discard spells to see what's coming. You're not having the hard counter magic and board wipes to recover if they do something you weren't entirely prepared for. So your deck is very curated, to these specific answers for specific cards, and you are slowly chipping away your opponent's life total. Now, the card that Bao really wants to see in these matchups in general is Curious Obsession, because that is his card advantage engine. And if you put down a Curious Obsession, even just on a 1/1, it all of a sudden becomes a 2/2. You're putting a decent clock on Frenchie's life total, and at the same time, you're drawing additional cards.
So when we're heading in now, it's game number 2. Players are now done sideboarding. I'm very interesting to see now that Bao's on the play, where now Spell Pierce is now going to be really important going into this.
On the play, Spell Pierce is huge, and there's Invasion of Gobakon, there's Curious Obsession, so Bao, though, unfortunately going to mulligan that because I didn't see any creatures in that hand.
I didn't see any creatures at all, so kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, the problem is when you have a tempo deck like this, you need your tempo spells like counter magic, you need your card advantage, and you need a creature. Now, normally all of them cost like 1 or 2 mana, so if you have one of each of them, you're pretty good, and most of the time they have flash or some way to play them on your opponent's turn, so you're usually pretty good with that, but you still need them in your opening hands.
So, Nicholas is going to keep a snap keep of 7 here. Bao is now down to 6. It is going to keep this hand. Looks like a Spell Queller. That's about all I can see here. Oh, I forgot what that one mana spirit is.
Spectral Sailor?
Spectral
Or
Sailor.
Mausoleum Wanderer?
I think it's
Or
Mausoleum.
there's a lot of them.
Problem.
Ooh!
The Gladeline, the guild pack comes out from Nicholas in the pregame.
Yeah, this is why the ley line is in there, because now Nicholas has 8 devotion, and so Elf. Yeah, opening Elf here, follow-up Nykthos. This is going to wind up being like 10 mana on turn 2.
I think there is a Nykthos in the hand right now. So, oh, so this is the Lord for spirits, if I remember.
Supreme Phantom is a 1/3, and this is a very interesting play by Bao. I do see Geistlight Snare in the hand, and I do wind up seeing a Spell Queller, but no interaction for what Nicholas is trying to do. On turn 2, so just playing out the Lord, signaling shields down entirely. Nicholas, on the other hand, though, is going to wind up be playing, I think that's Invasion of Ikoria, which is basically a second copy of Oath of Nissa. So you're going to be looking at the top cards of your library, and then you're going to be looking for a land in this case specifically. Like I think you could find a non-human creature or a land, basically. Not Invasion of Ikoria. This is the Invasion of Zendikar, I think, is the one. All these invasions and the planes and everything are so weird to see.
They look the same. I would say that.
But that's also, unfortunately, the incorrect one from me. This is the 2-mana one, which is basically an Oath of Nissa. So Frenchie going to be looking for a creature or land in this case, does wind up finding that Outcaster Trailblazer, and it looks like a Sunken Citadel is being played. So this is going to be something that basically Sunken Citadel taps and then activates the Nykthos all by itself. So now you don't even need that elf for mana. So now you're looking at 10 devotion on the side of Frenchie, and then 11 mana if you just play Nykthos and activate it with Sunken Citadel.
Bao is going to attack. Swing 1. Taking Frenchie down to 19 here. So it's the Island go. So we do know there's a spell card in the hand here, but I don't know if spell cards really hit much in this matchup.
Yeah, the problem is that, well, I guess the good thing here with the Spell Queller is that it can just exile a spell on the stack if it's 4 or less. So if Frenchie is going to be playing the Outcaster Trailblazer, it will get exiled here. So that is actually something that you can hit with that. Oh, and Frenchie does not have a land drop.
So, actually, yeah, so Bao's actually not in a bad position here. But if Nicholas does top deck a Nykthos here, it might get really hand, but press the advantage while you can. Bring Frenchie down to 15. And I think that's about it for Bao's turn here. Not sure Bao's thinking here.
If I'm Bao in this case, I am just playing Drago and attacking with my creatures. Frenchie is missing land drops, and there's at least 1 Geistlight Snare, 2 Geistlight Snares in hand, which are fully online.
Oh, Elvish Mystic?
Yeah, that's no big deal here.
Oh, 2. No, we have all the mana in the world, but no Nykthos.
Yeah. So at this point in time, you still have 5 mana available if you're Frenchie, but the problem is that you don't have the what is it now, 12 mana that you would have had with a Nykthos. So 5 mana does represent the ability to play like a Cavalier of Thorns next turn, but we know that Bao has double counterspell in hand for that, and you really need the Nykthos to pay the tax on that Geistlight Snare.
Looks like another Sunken Citadel gets drawn from Nicholas here. Not what you want to see. So like 1, so 3, 4, 5 mana. Elshnorn. Mother Machines comes out.
This should not resolve.
Yes, so Bao is going to play one of those mana leak cards again. Oh, and step tap blue. Spectre Sail comes out. Yay!
So Bao, now this is a decent clock because Bao's got Frenchie down to 11. The Supreme Phantom does not pump itself, but it does pump everything else. So that's going to be, 5, 6 damage, I believe, because Spell Queller's now representing 3, Spectral Sailors 2, and then 1 from the Supreme Phantom.
Yes.
Oh, there it
Is
is.
that Curious Obsession?
Yeah, so this is going to be an additional damage. So that is going to be 7 damage now. So that's 2-turn clock here against Frenchie. And more importantly, Bao connecting is going to wind up drawing a card.
So bringing Frenchie down to 4. Frenchie really needs the top deck.
Oh yeah.
And Nykthos here. Oh, slip out the back is actually not bad at all for Bao.
Yeah, slip out the back here represents a way to remove a blocker if Frenchie's able to put down a Cavalier of Thorns or something
6
big.
mana.
Ooh,
What is that?
Storm the Festival.
Storm the Festival.
If Bao has that other Geistlight Snare, casting it here basically is good game.
Do backfield, tapped out.
And Bao's asking, tapped out? You know what that means if you're playing against
Yeah,
a blue player.
there it is. And Bao takes game number 2. So it looks like, I mean, I'm not surprised. Play draw is where it gets really dicey.
Well, more importantly for this specific matchup, when Bao's deck is on the play, we saw how it was able to kind of grasp control of the situation throughout the entire game. Frenchie's deck, stumbling on lands, was a very big one, but Bao's deck is built that if your opponent stumbles at all, it will completely seize control of the game and will kind of bury you in all of this advantage that it's able to kind of generate off of all those spells. Now, if you're Frenchie, you wind up seeing a little bit more from Bao's deck. You didn't actually see any sideboard cards, however, so you're not necessarily knowing what he wound up bringing in for this matchup, but what Frenchie can kind of expect to maybe be putting in here are some hard-hitting Question. If that's going to be in the list, it's basically just like a fight spell or a bite spell. It's 1 green mana, which is most important, so you have the ability to pay for any of those taxing counter spells, and of course it winds up targeting some of like the very key Curious Obsessioned up creatures. And you could also go for Pick Your Poison. Pick Your Poison is just a very good removal spell against the Spirits deck. You in general don't have a ton of Spirits on the battlefield, so that could just be a Edict effect, but it could also get rid of Curious Obsession.
So heading now to game number 3. Both players shuffling very quickly here. No sideboard changes on either end. So Nicholas goes straight down to 6. Now, ooh, it looks like I get lost in Bao hand, but it's going to send that one back as well. So both players going down to 6 here.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting kind of choice of mulligans now. Frenchie already kind of kept that 2 mana hand and it didn't really do anything. It stalled out and Bao had all of that tempo advantage. Frenchie's going to be looking for a hand that is basically turn 1 elf because they know that Bao can't really do anything to remove that creature. And then going to be either playing a turn 2 Kiora or more importantly turn 2 Outcast or Trailblazer because that plays around the potential of a Spell Pierce from Bao's deck.
So looks like there's, ooh, that doesn't look like an amazing hand for Nicholas's, but it is 2 guild packs, but I think that's just it.
It looks like game number 1's hand.
Yeah, it looks a lot like game number 1 hand. Ooh, pow, with a 2-lander, okay. So can't really tell what that Dark Island from.
I'm assuming it's an island instead of a plains, but it looks
Yeah.
like there's a dual land and an island, which is the Eldritch Moon, or not Eldritch Moon, the
Shadows over the one in the shot, Midnight of
Midnight Hunt, or
Midnight Hunt, yes.
whatever the one is that had the double feature cards, as we see Frenchie starting out with that turn 0 ley line of the Guild Pact, and then something that Bao does not want to see right away, which is turn 1 elf.
Get back into Elf here, into a Nykthos here is very bad news, but oh, actually
There it is.
Oh no! So it looks like how much mana floating? 5? Into a Trailblazer.
Trigger. I have 3.
So 3 mana left over. There's going to wind up playing an elf, and we do see Elish Norn, Mother of Machines in hand. So Leyline of the Guild Pack does let you tap for any color of mana with your lands, but right now, Frenchie needs those lands to activate the Nykthos. So with this follow-up elf here, it's actually really important because now you can cast Elish Norn next turn.
Go for 2 in the air.
Oh, so Battles to the swing for 2 here. Trigger draws a card. Now, looks like only an islet in hand for the land here.
I'll pass.
So, Battles is gonna pass it on over. There's a lot of mana to work with here for Nicholas.
So this can represent 7 devotion. And then if there's a land in hand off the top, that would be enough to pay for Elish Norn, Mother of Machines, and the Geistlight Snare if Bao has it. Bao is going to be able to cast that Geistlight Snare for 1 because it gets reduced by 1 if you control a spirit, and 1 if you control an enchantment, which Bao has both of.
Gaslight Snare is a hard counter, yeah?
It is, unless you pay 3.
Oh, and we see the Geistlight Snare in hand.
Slicer is
Right. Frenchie kind of asking, is it a hard counter?
Fair
But-
play. So 8 mana floating for Frenchie.
7 mana.
Well, 7. 7 mana going down. Oh, casting.
And so, yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
Frenchie needs to catch the fact that he needs to use one of his lands to cast Elish Norn.
That's for white. This is paying in here, so I have 7, 8. I go down to 3 green floating.
Oh, actually, exactly down to 3 green floating.
So Bao now has the difficult decision to make. Do I use my Geistlight Snare, which Frenchie can pay for, so that they cannot follow up with whatever card they draw off of the Outcaster Trailblazer? And it looks like that's what Bao's going to
Yeah,
do.
so we're gonna have the gas here pop out.
Draw 1.
So good.
2.
Pay, so draw double from here.
Yeah, because of the Elish
Yeah.
Norn.
Move to combat.
Swing for 4.
16 all.
Now, Bao's in a really rough position. I'm not sure that Azorius is enough removal to even deal with this current board state.
So what you really want to be seeing here from Bao is Get Lost to get rid of the Elish Norn, because Elish Norn is also going to be stopping things like your spell quellers from entering the battlefield and actually being able to exile any spells, because it shuts off the opponent's stuff.
Oh, I see a slip out. So I see a slip out of the back for Bao here. So maybe we're gonna phase out potentially the Elshnorn.
I think Bao still has a little bit of time before he needs to consider doing something like that. Right now, you kind of just want to represent another Geistlight Snare against anything Frenchie can land, like a Cavalier of Thorns, but Frenchie's got a ton of mana right now. Is that a Gold Vein Hydra? Oh no, that's Pelucranos.
Pelucranos.
So that's a 4/5 reach Hydra, which can transform, which is another reason why you have the white in this deck, is because you don't have to pay the 2 Phyrexian mana life to do so. But that would flip over basically into a Wormcoil engine, where all your Hydras can then split and split and split. But more importantly, this is a 4/5 a giant middle finger to the Azorius Spirits deck.
So we have another outlaw coming out here. So we're gonna have how many triggers is going off here? So we're gonna draw a ridiculous amount of cards here. There's 1 mana floating here. Maybe we're gonna play another elf out. Just why not? Use up all your mana. So let's get a transformation sign of Pelucranos. So it is actually Wormcoil.
Yep, it's a 6/6. It does have reach. It has lifelink. Does not have death touch. But when it dies, another non-token Hydra you control dies. So that includes Lair of the Hydra or Gold Vein Hydra from this deck. It splits into a reach and a lifelink worm. So. This is what I believe everybody in the business calls going off.
Yeah, I think Nicholas is going off here pretty easily.
Yeah, so now.
So 12 mana now floating for Nicholas. Not looking too hot here. Could play the other late line in the guild pack if they wanted to. But actually just gonna play the troll out.
Why not? Now you're going to wind up drawing 6 cards?
I would love to play Mill into this one.
This is basically just, you have double ancestral recall against, because you have this Elish Norn. And so that's why the deck is splashing white. This is why some people call it mommy green instead of mono green, because you have Elish Norn, Mother of Machines, to make all of these triggers double. So you're basically, you can go down to 0 cards in hand and then up to 6 or 7 very, very easily with this shell.
Kiora comes out again. So we'll have
like
15
infinity.
mana.
I have
Val just
4, so I'm at 19 total.
watching on.
15 mana from every Nykthos activation, and let's use 6 of it.
Else is you 6, you know.
13.
Go down to 13.
No, and there's a land that we haven't played yet for turn either, and another
Yeah.
Kiora, so
Outlaw, am I not?
So-
Let's make that 9 cards. Yeah, 9 cards the cast.
so this will be 16 mana when you untap the Nykthos with this Kiora. You can flash back to Storm the Festival, and like we said in game number 1, you're looking for the Uvenwald oddity. You can flip it over and give everything +1/+1 in haste, and then Bao is dead on board.
So we're gonna draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7,
9 to
8.
8 altogether.
8 altogether now. Looking just.
Kiora, I'll untap.
Oh, untap Nykthos, go back up to how much?
16 total devotion on the battlefield, and I believe Frenchie used all of it in order to storm the festival and then untap with the cure and then reactivate the Nykthos. So 16 mana floating. Oh, okay. So we have a
Yeah.
second storm the festival,
Yeah, second one.
and then we still have 10 mana floating, so we can flash it back if we don't find the Uvenwald oddity here.
I think we
think-
just found it.
yeah, there it
There
is.
it is.
Pretty good.
Just gonna show it.
Yeah, because Frenchie now has 10 mana floating. It's only 7 to activate the Ovenwald oddity. We're also going to wind up drawing a ton of cards here. 16 cards altogether. So Frenchie's going to be careful because I don't know if these are May triggers from Outcast or Trailblazer. If they aren't, you could be in danger of decking yourself, but you also have the kill on board. So as long as you have more than 16, it's fine. Yeah, it's not a
Not
May,
May.
but you're perfectly fine here.
So flip.
To bash you with a fuck ton of
It's the go wide.
That's a scientific term right there.
Yeah. So.
No, I gotta slow out the back. I was like, maybe.
So Nicholas taking it all together with 2 games of just going completely off.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, the mono green devotion deck used to be a bad matchup for the Azorius Spirits deck, but it was a little more manageable when it was Karn and you're wishing for artifacts and you had to play planeswalkers to really get your value. But when you're just playing big, beefy creatures like that, it is even worse for Azorius Spirits.
Yeah, and not much Brown can just do there except for just needing to have to get lost at the right time, needing to have their removal. So I don't know actually how correct it was to, just jam another creature out where you can just leave a Spellcrawler.
Yeah, I think the big problem for Bao was he was just drawing kind of the wrong parts of his deck in that game number 3. Now, one of the things that you kind of have to keep in mind with a tempo deck is you want to stay ahead of the curve, and we did wind up seeing Geistlight Snares and things to kind of deal with some of the cards. But with Frenchie's opener there going Elf, going Leyline of the Guild Pack, Elf, having the Nykthos and having the second Elf and the third land available meant that it was exactly counter to what Bao had in hand. So Geistlight Snare, normally counter unless you pay 3 on turn 2, is basically hard counter spell. But against the Elish Norn mono green devotion deck, he had 8 mana available, so then Frenchie was able to not only pay the 5 for Elish Norn, but then could just follow up by paying the full 3 for Geistlight Snare, and Bao basically just needed to top deck Get Lost right then and there, or it wound up unfolding the way we saw it.
Yeah, at least Val got a nice front row seat to watch greatness, basically.
Pretty much, and this is kind of something that some of the old mono green devotion pilots were kind of missing, was the fact that you kind of generate all this velocity with the deck. For a while, people were playing around with the old shell, and it still put the Uvenwald oddity in there for the kill and the combo and everything, but it was really missing Outcast or Trailblazer being a second copy of Kiora's static ability, because when you had that static ability, you draw so many cards, and you had 2 ways of doing it instead of just 1, and we saw what happens there. Sometimes you just wind up drawing 8.
Yeah, and maybe Mono Green's back after all.
I think it is. I mean, I was talking with Frenchie on Discord a little bit earlier, and they said that the RCQ they went to last weekend, while most of the people were at SCGCon in Vegas, had 5 or 6 mono green pilots in the room, and there were only like 20-something people at the RCQ.
Wow. I think from my experience too, while walking around at SGCon, there was actually quite a few mono green decks.
Oh, yeah.
Not at the top tables, but there were quite a handful.
Yeah, and this is something that I know when Aspiring Spike was still playing Pioneer like a couple months ago after the Karn ban. This is kind of where the deck came from. I don't know if Spike was the one that crafted it or was one that kind of just popularized it. I know that we've had like some other Pioneer streamers like Tandy really kind of drilling this deck in before Modern Horizons 3 came out. So there's a lot of kind of content out there on the deck. So I think a lot of the older mono green pilots that kind of got discouraged or shifted over to like Phoenix or Vampires are back on the deck because they have all the pieces and just needed to buy the Trailblazers.
Yeah, and you know what? You don't need Karn.
Nope, you don't
Don't
need
need
card.
card.
Well, you can't. So.
But yeah, but you know what format you can play Karn in? Commander.
Ooh.
So Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific time, Card Art is open for free play Commander with tables for all skill levels from the first time to CDH. There's sure to be a spot for you no matter the power level of your deck. Bring a friend or an entire group of 4 and make sure to check in at the register to receive $3 in store credit.
Yeah.
Just for coming down and jamming some games.
Yep, it's pretty solid. You just get to show up with a bunch of friends. Everybody gets $3 for sitting down and just kind of playing your pot of Commander. There's a couple of restaurants nearby. There's some boba next door, so you can just kind of sit there and chill for a couple of pods and maybe find some new people to play with.
Yeah, make sure also double down with Card's 10% off Magic singles on Wednesday as well.
Mm.
So you can probably get some new MHD cards potentially.
Yeah, or you sit down at your pod and your friends beat up on you, so you go and change your.
Oh, the Pioneer here. And I'll see. It'll probably be like another 10-minute break or so.
Or so, yeah. We'll kind of keep posted in the chat, so make sure that you guys are staying tuned. We're going to be walking around the room, just kind of judging how the matches went. That was 3 games, although it was a little bit quick, so probably about double-digit amount of minutes before the next round.
All right, and we'll see you in the next round.